Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Everybody all right?
All good. Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of The Living Room. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here. Hope everyone is having a fantastic weekend so far. But before we get going, we thought it was important for us to start here. This week, we lost a Caribbean luminary, former Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Honorable Oinafa, and we thought it'd just be fitting, given his significance, not just to Barbados, but for the entire region of the Caribbean, that we start here with offering our condolences to the people of Barbados and to his family, his wife and his daughter, and his extended family as well. So condolences. So guys, I thought that was a good place for us to start before we jump right in.
Absolutely. I think there's quite a big sadness across the Caribbean on the passing of the Right Honorable Oinafa. And, we can collectively look at his life as someone on whose shoulders we are standing. We are having these conversations because of people like Oinafa and because of his life and because of his regional view. He wanted a better Caribbean, and so do we. So, long may his memories live on and long may his legacy live on.
Yeah, I must say it's fascinating in the Caribbean to see that whenever a leader such as Owen Arthur passes, no matter what side of the political divide people are, it's always sadness. It's always reflections on what he stood for. And I saw from both sides of the political divide, so to speak, in Barbados, people talking and recollecting stories of his brilliance as an economist and as a leader, and his forthrightness as well when it came down to debate. And I think that's a great part of Caribbean political culture.
Yeah, it was quite moving. A lot of the, tributes from right across the region, actually, that you saw, just the outpouring of love and just the recognition for, what he contributed to the Caribbean project of integration, CARICOM, the Caribbean single market and economy, the fervor by which he represented, as I said, not just Barbados, but the region as a whole, and for everything he tried to do to help us to see the value in ourselves and how we can move forward together. I think for me, that's his lasting legacy, and I'll always remember that.
Absolutely. And I think, if there was one thing that really caught my eye over the course of the week in reading back some of the things that were written about him, the contribution that he made to women, and particularly women in politics. He opened the door for the likes of Prime Minister Mia Mottley, the Barbados ambassador to the United Nations, Elizabeth Thompson. And you look back now and you recognize the vision that he had has really made a significant difference on the political landscape.
Yeah. He'll be sorely missed. And we just hope his legacy carries on. And I think what we're trying to do here at ReGlobal is an extension of that, having Caribbean conversations, bringing the region together through conversation and helping us realize the value that we have within ourselves as a people right across the region. So I thought that was important that we start there. So once again, condolences to his family and to the people of Barbados as well. How are things going generally, guys? What are we up to this week? Lots of stuff happening across the region and beyond, to be honest.
So I don't believe Phil has left his house this week.
That's right. For those who don't know, Phil is in Manchester. If you haven't heard, Manchester is going through a bit of a second lockdown. I don't know how severe this one is, but a second lockdown out there.
So Saturday, I was at football.
Wait, yes,
breaking the rules already. Breaking the rules.
Wasn't breaking the rules. Apparently,
shame on you, man.
It was completely. Apparently, that was completely allowed.
Allowed.
And then this today, I was at cricket.
Wow.
Completely allowed again.
And so, 4 bars to myself. Oh wow.
So the thing is, we were discussing this at football yesterday. It was like, so we can't meet in our homes, we can't meet in our gardens, but come into a friendly match for junior football
is allowed.
Lowe's appearance is fine. Because I was waiting on Friday night to get a call saying that football is off, right? But then they said football is still on. There's just a few social distancing rules. Bring your hand gel. And that was it.
Okay.
So this is my suspicion, right?
Right.
That this lockdown is not against the pandemic of coronavirus. This lockdown is against the pandemic of the economy failing. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
So what it's trying to do is to encourage people out. Stop socializing in your homes and start putting some of that time and money back into restaurants and pubs. The pubs yesterday again were heaving,
I remember
full.
this is the 1st of August. Eat out. Was the term? Eat out to help out. Is what the
People to
government
help out. I think
is what the
that's what it
government
is.
saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
I think you're probably right there, Phil. There's a lot of rising in the economic focus around how COVID is being handled.
Yeah.
And with that, you can see that there is a little bit of a diminishing in the health aspects. You listen to the scientists, you listen to the health practitioners, they will tell you very consistently, listen, COVID is still out there. It is still a very big issue across society. But the
Yeah.
politicians are concerned about the economics, and these two don't seem
Absolutely.
to be meeting very well at all.
Yeah.
well, it'll be interesting to see what happens because I see you suggesting that you may have to close the pubs and what's not in order for schools to open in September.
Close the pubs.
Exactly.
So we're going to see where the parents lie on that one, and then
man.
you're going to really know what's going on. And if
I
people really
think
support that.
it will come to that. But August is going to be a funny month of, are things open? And at some point in time, they'll say, we're leaving it to your discretion.
Of course.
You decide.
You
I think
decide.
so. I think so. But it'd be interesting to see. And what else happened across the region? Mark, anything caught your eye this week?
Well, Emancipation Day was really important. I felt looking to see how the region and this year, this 1st of August always comes and goes, and sometimes you feel as though it isn't always as focused as it needs to be. But I think in the context of all the reparation conversations that are happening and the context of what's happening around Black Lives Matter, I think that there has been a real galvanizing of, listen, we've got to really put a lot more emphasis and focus around Emancipation Day. And looking across the region, it felt as though that was happening.
Yeah. I think so as well. I noticed, that it seemed to be a lot more people actually paying attention to it. I don't know if because of restrictions, people didn't necessarily attend a lot of the events that were happening. I don't know, to be honest with you, but I certainly saw right across Facebook and social media and what's not, a lot more interactions about Emancipation Day than I've seen previously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it feels as though there is a regional and I dare say a global awakening and awareness of the significance of things like Emancipation Day. And of course, it's traumatic what has led to this awakening and this awareness. But I think it's something we have to embrace. I wouldn't use the word capitalize on because I'm not about exploiting these sort of sentiments. But I think we need to embrace it and reflect and join it and see what is it that's significant here and how can we start laying down the pillars and the flooring of legacy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I think two other
100%
things.
agree with that.
One quickly, I saw Buju Banton winning the competition there in Jamaica, which was great to see. That he's being very well loved over there in Jamaica at the moment.
Yeah, saw
And
that.
I think the other thing was this is a really interesting week coming for Trinidad and Tobago with the general election next Monday.
Well, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. But we got someone from Trinidad joining us later on. He'll give us an update of what it's like on the ground. I'm sure. But it's going to be interesting there. A few things that I saw this week as well. Well, for one, Liat can't seem to get out the news. I saw Prime Minister Brown offering up some money to deal with the salaries and stuff for people who've been working. That's a good thing, I think, because people have been working and, they're feeling it just as everyone else. And, so it's a good thing he's doing that. But I think in his messaging, he's also sending a signal to Barbados and St. Vincent of, look, I'm willing to take this on my shoulders to help people out. What are y'all going to do? Kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see the response and how people are dealing with that across the region as well. That was pretty interesting to see. Personally, as we said it a lot of times, LIAT is a Caribbean institution. I would hate to see it completely fail, but at the same time, recognizing it needs to get its house in order as well to survive.
Well, I think the response came in the Sunday Sun in Barbados today when Miss Motley saying, I think One Caribbean, the airline out of Turks and Caicos, will be
I saw that
landing in Barbados on Tuesday, and Barbados is going to be its hub. So if Mr. Brown is looking for a response, I think it came quite emphatic.
Okay.
I think it came quite emphatic today from the Prime Minister of Barbados.
There's a little bit of ignore that's happening as far as publicly. There's a little bit of public ignoring him that's happening there. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward.
So listen, I one thing I don't know if you saw, I did a little bit of a tribute over the past week, because Because
I know where this going.
I know you don't want to touch this subject. No, you know. I know this. Know that every week you just wait for me to bring up this subject, but
I never used to bring it up. So it's in my right there.
You listen. You saw my gallery that I put out this week on Facebook, man. With celebrating 1 month of being meat free.
No,
you know, I just have to say this to the audience here on We Global. Thank you guys for all of your encouragement, your warm words. I really appreciated it. It meant a lot. Thank you so much, man. You guys are awesome.
And everybody doing a collective. Wait, take you 6 months to get there. So you want pat on the back for that? That's what everybody doing.
That's not fair, Andre. He endured, man. Let's give him his accolades.
Man,
maybe want a medal or something.
Thank you, Phil, man. Thank you.
You got a little ribbon? If I didn't know he was going to come with that, I would have come with a little first place ribbon and give you a little virtual pin.
Yeah. Well, that's good, Mark.
A month is good. A month is good, man. I commend you for going for a full month. You know, be you feeling anything different?
Man, actually, yes. You know, I have to say, yeah. I do feel a lot more energetic, but I think that's the wife responsibility for that. Even though she's looking over the glasses at me at the moment, but yeah, man, she's been making sure that I get the right balance. So I feel pretty good, feeling pretty good, and the blood pressure.
When you say balance, what you mean? Tell me.
Man, listen, you saw that June Fowler, who was our first guest here on the living room, was taking one of my plates to task and I having too much carbs.
Starch, man.
Man, you didn't see that?
Oh, I didn't see that.
You got to check that on my
Starchatarian. Your word.
Because that is a real danger of vegetarianism.
You guys are starchatarian.
No, man, the wife is soon making sure the proteins and everything else is well balanced alongside
the fiber
meals. Nah, yeah. Anyway, listen. Enough of me, man.
They're running and thing now too.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what you gotta do now. That's the next place you gotta get up there.
The next level.
Thing,
whoa.
Man. Yeah, some exercise, man.
Listen, man. Who we got in the living room this week?
So, but you
close on that door.
One thing.
But you see how fast he's one get in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But then how fast he's exit.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Man, listen, I do about 50 push-ups a day, you know.
Ooh, you do 50 push-ups a day?
I work in my way back. I don't take it easy, man. I can got some breaking news for what it just now.
Over the course of 8 hours of the day or 12 hours.
Man, listen, I can have some breaking news for you guys just now, man. You just relax.
Jeez. We can go create a slide for that there. Pretty
Sound good.
But listen, so today we just continuing on our conversation about where do we go as a Caribbean post-COVID. And today we're looking at the subject of, the creative industries, which is one, I think, over the years we may have neglected it, even though it's so important to us as far as recognizes its worth, its value. I know that's a phrase that everyone here may use quite a lot. So we're going to have a conversation around that today. So we got quite a few interesting people in that's going to, I think, really take the conversation to a different level, really. So we got V, who's a vocal coach of Jamaican heritage, and she's here in the United Kingdom. You have Michelle from Barbados as well. She is a theater director, a playwright, a teacher, a lecturer, and stuff. So that's going to be interesting also. We got Curtis, who's a gospel artist from Trinidad and Tobago, but he also runs his business as well. I think it's called the Coaching Academy, looking at drama, music, singing, that kind of stuff as well. And potentially we may have Akim dropping by a little bit later. He's from St. Lucia and he's a promoter and stuff. So I think we got a good show, well-rounded, well-experienced individuals that we can have a good conversation.
No, this is good, man. Yeah, this is good, and one that we really need to have as a region. Yeah. So looking forward to this, definitely.
I think it's one of my sweet spots. I love talking about creativity.
We know.
Okay.
No, I mean that in a good way. Not about it. But anyway, before we get going though, let me just shout out a few people because I see we got loads of people in. Patrice, I see you in there. Hello, how are you? Welcome today. We see as well Marika that's there. Joanne Critchlow, welcome. A few new faces that I'm seeing today.
Yeah,
so welcome.
To see you guys in.
Wilfred, I see you there as well. I know you're always in most weeks as well. Welcome. Eunice, I see you there as well. Good afternoon to you as well. So I think it's going to be a good conversation today. So I'll just go and let our guests in. And we can start.
I'll actually do it there, man.
Hey everybody, welcome.
Hi. Hi
Good
guys.
afternoon. Good
Hi.
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
Great to have you guys in the living room today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Great to be here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
awesome. So listen, we you would have heard, we tend to have quite a wide ranging conversation here, and it's great that you guys are coming from so many different perspectives. And perhaps Curtis, you might want to start us off today, because one of the things we were just talking about is what's coming in Trinidad over the course of the next week before we get into the creatives. Very, very briefly, what are you looking forward to over the next week with the election next Monday?
Well, first of all, we're just hoping that that people still adhere to the guidelines, because when we get excited in Trinidad, we just do foolishness.
Well, the-
One set of foolishness. We forgetting the mask home. We forgetting the mask. We forgetting everything. Oh no. So I'm really, every time I get the opportunity, I try to remind anybody, that the people that follow my stuff, that they need to not forget what this. We are still in a global pandemic, as
Yeah.
much as it's a really defining moment for Trinidad and Tobago moving forward. So it's a lot of different stuff which we can unpack, but we limit it today.
Yes, yes. No, it's great. It's great to get that perspective, though. Really, really great to hear. And listen, we've been talking about the creatives for a long time, and the people who make their living in this whole area of creativity. And we just felt we need to bring some people together to talk about this, because
Yeah.
we can't do it justice amongst ourselves. And perhaps Michelle, you in Barbados, as when we talk about creatives, a lot of times we can get stuck on who's doing soca music or who's doing reggae music, and we
Exactly.
don't often get past the established areas of the creative sector. You work in theater production, Michelle. Talk us through a little bit of, first of all, yourself, your background, what it is you do, and even how COVID has affected you as a creative working there in Barbados.
Okay, so hi again, everybody. I am, as Mark would have said, or I think it was Andrew that said earlier, I'm a theater practitioner here. But I'm very fortunate because I also work at Barbados Community College, so I'm able to interact with a range of persons who are professionals in the creative sector through our Division of Fine Arts, or Center for Visual and Performing Arts. So we've got visual artists, we've got graphic designers, we have fashion designers, musicians, dancers, sculptors. The list really goes on. And I think all of us were obviously quite affected by COVID, because the arts, traditionally we're kind of a face-to-face kind of people,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we had to close in March, we kind of went through this moment of trying to figure out how to restructure this idea of teaching the visual and performing arts online and by distance learning. It was a real kind of steep learning curve, chalky mount kind of thing, So
Yeah, Chalky
we,
Monk
we
is quite
really had
high.
an interesting yeah, high and steep.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it was a real challenge for us. I think as a collective, those of us at BCC, we really did manage to pull it together, and we got through the semester pretty well. A couple of the courses we would have had to wait until we were open back to teach, especially courses like dance. But in theater, we were able to kind of try to figure out how to bring theater to a live but non-present audience via Zoom.
Okay.
Interesting.
And that was an interesting experience. So, yeah, we started off telling people, oh, we're just going to do a play reading. So we just have faces on screen and we're just reading, that's it. And then when we started kind of working with Zoom, then we realized, oh, wait, we can hide participants. So it's kind of like if you're going off stage and on stage, and then we started saying, "Oh, look, we can change our names."
Yeah.
So we
started to
really
become
started
characters
to
and so on.
experiment. Became the characters, and we had people like to each other, screen to screen. It was really quite a fun experiment. So we're continuing that experiment. We're looking at doing live shows by Zoom. of course, for us, the biggest thing is that this idea of doing shows online now has expanded our potential reach in terms of
Of
the
course.
audience. So it's no
Absolutely.
longer just Barbados.
Yep.
Yeah.
We are
Borderless now.
able to reach beyond Barbados. We can reach, we can reach internationally. We can reach regionally. You know, we're able to really now pull in this kind of global audience.
Yeah.
So
Which of course comes with its challenges too, but
yeah,
it's been an experience for
I was
us.
going to ask about that. Now that it's borderless, has that changed the scope of themes that you might look at from a theater perspective? Has it influenced that at all?
Not yet, because personally, my philosophy as an artist has always been to represent things Bajan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that because we have a global audience, that gives me more reason to represent things Bajan.
Fair
You
enough.
know, let me just shout out Craig Yearwood, see Bajan earrings. You know, I've got here Nala's work. That's Bajan. That's always been my philosophy. And I think that it's an opportunity for us to show the rest of the globe what we have to offer as Bajans. So we use Bajan dialect, let me tell the Bajan stories, let me use the Bajan folk songs. So I haven't changed my approach in terms of the themes because you know the God thing that people just tell you in the Caribbean that Barbados ain't got the culture. We hear that a lot. You know, they don't know what women is doing in Barbados. I said, yeah, we actually do have a thriving art scene. So I am.
Listen, let's come back and unpack that because that is interesting.
That's something
very
that I have
interesting.
there.
Yeah.
So V, welcome to the living room, and obviously, you know, you're here in the UK. You're doing your vocal coaching. You're a tremendous singer. For those who don't know you, so talk us through a little bit of the journey that you've been on as someone who is singing in choirs in music. What's going on, or what has happened?
Yeah, well, so good evening, everyone, from a less than sunny England. I'm so jealous, Michelle, you know.
Pretty sunny here in London.
So listen, my background really is in teaching. Essentially, I've been teaching for 30 years, and that really started off. I started teaching French. That was where my background kind of came in. But I always had this love of music. It was very much this draw with the arts, and I just couldn't leave that side of me alone. So it's kind of come full circle. So I'm now back in the world of music more so than anything else that I've been doing. So yeah, teaching part-time within schools as an arts educator, which has been really interesting and obviously impacted by COVID. But we've had to upskill, you know. I was saying to one of the line managers that we should perhaps get some like certification, because some of the stuff that we've had to do like this at home by ourselves, upskill and learn. So I've had to learn how to record, how to edit, how to put, as you know, I'm not technical at all. So if I can do it, well, yeah. So we've had to use a range of kind of routes and resources, because some of us within the team that I work in, there's a good 40 odd of us. Some of us are obviously vocalists. Some of us are woodwind or brass. So those three areas are the areas that we can't go back into school and do for us at the moment. But we've got other people within the team who are, you know, obviously different musicians, different types of musicians, but we've all used the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams route. So we've taught one-to-one, we've done group teaching, and you know, Zoom, I should have bought shares with these folks. My goodness, we have lived on Zoom. So yeah, but distance learning is very much the go-to at the moment. Something that some of us may have been involved in already, but we've found that working beyond the latency issues and those types of things, how do you have your sheet music? Obviously, I'm speaking from a musician's perspective, dealing with children or pupils who don't have their sheet music and learning how to share that. And it's really, we've had to work collaboratively to see how we can kind of solve those aspects. But I also run Shantae Vocal School and Shantae Choir, and we have continued without any hiccups. So in fact, I've got a few who are ready to kind of go on quite big steps. I've got somebody who's just landed the first class degree in music theatre. One of my pupils, I'm really proud of her. She's going on to great and brilliant things. And there's lots of other pupils that I've still been able to work with, but I've had to take it to where they are, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I think that's something for us to bear in mind, we have to go where our clients are. And people, 60% of what we're doing at the moment, they say, in the UK is being done online. So it's about really thinking about where we can take it to. And I find that has worked. I've done a couple of choir sessions, which have been fun. And in fact, it allowed people who ordinarily wouldn't have been involved to be involved. I had somebody from France, I had somebody from Cyprus. So literally, as you mentioned, borderless kind of interaction is kind of is a key thing, really.
That is really, really tremendous. You want to jump in, Dre?
Yeah, I was going to say that's interesting. And I think you just hit it there, is that people who may not necessarily be always involved, all of a sudden are involved, because one can have a tendency, especially when dealing with creative stuff, the arts and theater, what's not, to think about the physical production of who's going to attend, who's going to be there. You have to go to rehearsal in person. But I think this season has helped, broaden that perspective, in that virtually you can do a lot more, which initially is a hindrance. And yes, you'd prefer to be physically together, but because of the virtual world in which we are in now and what's being forced upon us via COVID, you've actually been allowed to widen the tent a little bit more and get access to skills and people and technologies that perhaps you may not have gotten access to before this season. So it'd be interesting to see, and what you guys think coming out of that season or this season, how we can continue that. So that'd be interesting. So Curtis, what about yourself in Trinidad? You're running your academy and what's not. This season, how has it impacted, and how have you been able to overcome it a bit?
Well, it has been a quite interesting one, because I feel the same sentiment of Michelle and everyone else that is speaking the same uncertainty that they felt when March came. You know what I mean? And we wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen. As well as I know the vocal coach, what it feels like to teach somebody voice online versus in person. It's more of a vibe. You need to be in the space. So there's nothing that could replace that being in the space and feeling what the person is feeling, the resonance and everything. There's nothing that could really replace that. Online can't replace that. But with the coming of the borders, we became borderless, because now our school is, for the very first time, we are training persons in Maryland, in the USA, and someone in Manchester, in the UK. So we became borderless just by what has happened, and I could not have seen that happening. But one thing I do know though is that a lot of people sat back and just felt sorry for themselves, but only the ones that were persevering through all of that are now having the lion's share of what's happening. Because people are now leaning to them, you know what I mean? For being brave and for being, courageous to press through. And no, I have no time for myself actually right now. I have zero time. Zero time.
Wow. I was going to ask about that, because I know the tendency has been, for me as well, in my work, has been to say yes a lot more. Because initially it just seems so easy. It seems so easy. Yeah, I can have that meeting, to jump online, and then you find yourself from 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night.
But it's not so bad, because you could wear you're in your home clothes, you know what I mean? We chilling out. I have on my work shirt. So we can get used to this. This is okay.
True that.
But you touch on an extremely valuable point there, Curtis, about the opportunities thrown up through borderless creativity. And I wonder how much that is going to bring an influence to bear for those who are ready, because the reality is I remember when we had you on episode 2, you were kind of stepping back and trying to see where we go. You've recognized where you need to go now. How much of an opportunity do you think this borderless opportunity could be for those who are ready for it across the Caribbean creatives?
It is limitless. It is as far as you want to go. If you want to go global, it is as easy as a click now.
Yes.
It's just that simple. But I will tell you that it takes a lot of bravery. It will also take more than a reboot, but more of a reimagination of what the thing actually
okay.
is. You know?
That's right.
So
that's one of our
me.
reads.
That's his space.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that,
Absolutely.
because one of the things I saw, and Michelle hit on it there as well, is using Zoom. And I saw there were quite a few theater houses across the world creating productions via Zoom. And I think the opportunity there as well is, as actors and actresses, to help to grow, because now, as Jean was saying earlier, there's a bit of energy that you feel when you're in person that you don't necessarily get online.
Yeah.
But again, as Curtis said, I think if you reimagine what it means to be an actor, actress, a singer, whatever, to translate that online to an audience, I think that would help you grow as an artist as well. So again, as you're saying, the person who can not see it only as a hindrance, but see, well, how can I survive and navigate and grow during this time, is the ones who would probably come out on top. You wanted to jump in there, V?
Yeah, I think that having done quite a few recordings in fact, I've done more recordings during the lockdown than I have at any other time. And I think it's really challenged me to develop skill-wise how to delivery, so if it were a meeting I'm in, how am I delivering? How am I presenting myself? What's my intonation like? And I think it's actually challenging me as an artist to improve and not just relying on the audience to respond to what I'm singing and respond to what I'm doing. Because if you're recording for an album, for example, you have to bring that essence to the recording. You have to have that assumed audience, so to speak. And I think that's really important that we up our skills to kind of take it to where it needs to be. Certainly.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I mean, we've always taught our students that you should perform for an audience of 1 in the same way that you'd perform for an audience of 1,000.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, exactly.
But there is something magical that happens when you have that feedback from the audience during a performance, when you can hear they're clapping, they're laughing, or whatever. So it's been a challenge for our students to make that adjustment, because we do kind of feed off of the audience's energy at the same time. But I think what we've been able to do is to, through Zoom, of course, and I mean, even through this platform, we've got those live comments that are coming in. So we still have a measure of interaction there. There's nothing, I think, that can really replace the live performance. But, we just have to, as Curtis says, reimagine where we are now and understand that it's not the same time. And you have to create a different kind of magic in this moment.
I was going to ask, do you think that there's a technology sort of opportunity there? So similar in sports, there's sort of this synthetic noise that they create. Could there be a technology opportunity there to reflect this seems to be the audience sentiment at this moment, and we generate a bit of applause, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think they used to do that kind of thing back in the day, in the early kind of comedic scene. They do a funny scene and you can hear the tinned laughter.
I saw one of the orchestras as well doing a live performance, and I think there was a company that came about to try to help them deal with the latency as well, because obviously the orchestra were playing in different areas. So I think there's going to be loads of opportunity for technology where that's concerned. I was smiling earlier, Michelle, when you said audience of 1, because I remember many years ago when the 3 of us, we sang in a group together. We were on tour, and we went to a concert to sing at a massive auditorium. How many people turned up, Mark? I think about 8.
Those were the days, boy.
I think about 8 people turned up. But we performed.
But you still got to bring your A game.
You bring it, and it was and vocally and performance-wise, it was actually one of our very best concerts. Even though only 6 people out of an auditorium that seats about 1,000 were there. So that's interesting.
Okay. They paid their money to be there. They want their money's worth,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So listen, Michelle, there's a really important piece here that we need to examine, though, because you mentioned very briefly students and what you are teaching students. We've got very seasoned practitioners in this call, but do you think your students truly understand the opportunity with this borderless creativity that is confronting them?
I think they understand it better than we do, because those students live in technology and on social media. So they were teaching us. We were the old people in the room. So they had to teach us a lot of things, even about, getting out on Instagram and Facebook and all these things. So I do think they understand. They are also still learning, what this possibility means for them as young practitioners coming up. But yeah, I do think they appreciate the opportunity, especially because, for instance, we did a full length production. Like I said, that was a play reading. So I started off as a play reading, and they were able to get comments from one of our elders in the arts in Barbados, Ilambe Motley, who's based in Jamaica, right? And Ilambe was there, and he was able to then give them that feedback from Jamaica, and that meant so much to them. So I do think they're really appreciating the scope that it affords them. We're having fun discovering it together, to be honest.
No, I like that, and I like that. Sorry, Phil, go ahead.
I was just gonna come back to that because earlier Michelle talked about culture and people questioning the culture, the existence of culture in Barbados. So I find quite often when we think of theater and so on in Barbados, we expect to see either a kind of historical context or something very historical, or something that's a bit probably a bit more contemporary, but future focused. Is there a lot of theater that's really delving into the area of futurism and looking at this is what future Caribbean could look like? This is what future I don't mean next year or 2021. I'm talking about really, really far in the future, and imagining
No,
a bit of fantasy
not yet.
and sci-fi, that sort of stuff.
Not yet. We're not there yet. I think that in Barbados as a people, we're still very much in a place where we are figuring out where we are in the now, figuring out our own identity. We're kind of working through the idea of nationalism, the idea of, even kind of processing our journey to this point. There's a lot more, I suppose, weight now given to things like the Pan-Africanist movement. And so, we're all in that space where we're looking at ourselves in the now. And I think when we begin to really understand who we are as a people, it becomes a lot easier than to project into future. But I don't think we're there yet. There are a couple of productions that we've seen. I know the NCF did do, sorry, for those who don't know, the National Cultural Foundation. They did do a production, I think it was about 2 years ago, which did have a futuristic pull. But that's, once in a while. You don't see that as the norm, so to speak. A lot of us are still exploring identity and where we are in the now and our culture and that kind of thing.
What about in Trinidad, Curtis? Is it a similar thing, or have you say that Trinidad is a bit ahead or moved on a bit in the culture and theater?
Well, for one, how could I explain this, boy? Sorry, guys. First of all, if you're hearing noise in the background, those are the political trucks.
I noticed. I heard it.
I don't know if I can close the windows, the doors. There's nothing else I can close.
Camera is coming.
I heard the guy there. So
oh my gosh!
I heard it.
But you know what I found concerning the theater now. We have a film festival every year, a massive film festival, which would have the likes of Will Smith and all of these guys coming down. And there was film festival this year. It was, I believe, 2 weeks ago or so, and it was all virtual. And the online traction was still big. It was still very, very, it was viable, because normally I know that they still try to get a lot of people there, but I think online they got a lot more people there. And there were the aspects of paid that you could have done with like master classes with the various persons, that now that the people that own these festivals didn't have to bring these people in. But they, of course, so even the budget would have been even lower for those that are running events, not booking these massive venues and all these things. And a lot more people would have been involved in film festival this year, I'm sure, than before, as well as for the advertisers, which of course is the main revenue and income for these events. The advertisers don't care if it's in person or not. They care about the eyes. And so if there are a lot of people watching online, To them, it's the same as if a lot of people was in a venue. So there was no really cutback. You still saw the major advertisers or the major companies, and like the banks and the B Mobiles and the Digicel still having that major impact on the film festival. So as I said, it was really a reimagination of the whole thing. And I believe what I really, really feel strongly about is that what we're trying to do as a community sometimes is try to bring it back to what it used to be, you know what I mean? Or try to measure it by what it used to be, not taking in context that there are a lot of people that were born for the last 4 months that have no recollection of what it used to be, and what we have now is what it is all it is. You know what I mean? So it's us. We are having a problem with trying to readjust, but a lot of people will not have a problem, and we don't even know if it's going to go back to any semblance of normal as we would know before. So what do we do now?
What we thought was normal.
What we thought was normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is a very defining moment in history.
Yes.
Because as you rightfully said, it gives us the opportunity to reimagine. And to think again about but how can we do this differently? How can we think about the Caribbean and the hub of creativity in the world, in my view? How can we reimagine what we offer and put it in more of a package together to make people say, you know what, that's what I want to participate in. What do you think, V, in terms of how do you see the Caribbean reimagining this space?
So for me, I think...
So mine... Go ahead.
Go ahead, V.
Go on.
So for my part, thinking as a Black British lady, I'm thinking about the fact that you have the wealth and it's unapologetically Caribbean, and we're happy to celebrate that. And there are institutional issues and concerns that we have here in Britain. In order for us to do something on par, it would need a major trailblazer and those of us here and others to really state the claim. I think we've only just established the Black British Theatre Awards. I think it's a new thing. If this year's the first year, or maybe last year, it's brand new, and this is just happening in Britain. It's about Britons, what they're contributing legacy-wise in terms of historically, culturally, and so forth. It's only just begun to be celebrated in the loosest terms. So I don't know about sponsorship and about whether they have attracted any kind of major headliners, but it needs to be happening. I know there's a wave now, the whole Black Lives Matter. It's always mattered. Anyway, but there's a whole kind of everyone getting behind that because there's a bit of momentum. But I think what needs to be happening is a celebration wherever we are, bloom where you're planted, so to speak. Less apology about who you are, less apologizing about your culture. My children know that they've got a Bayesian and a Jamaican background, and simple as that. You know, we're unapologetic. This is this is that, this is the other. So I think that you're actually, Michelle and Curtis, you're in a really strong position to advise individuals like me as to how we present this. How do we kind of present this as a part of a school curriculum? How do we present this as the norm? This is normal for us to sing or create or present ourselves. I think you've got such a strong advantage, and you could very easily mentor so many of us and tell us how it really could be done.
So that's really interesting, right? So last night we had the launching of the Faculty of Culture and Creative Arts and stuff at University of West Indies. Michelle, your students...
Culture, creative, and performing arts.
And performing arts, yes, right. When your students in the class, do they feel like this is a viable path of a profession for them, occupation for them, the arts, while they're in the class and when they finish? Do they feel that?
When we audition students at BCC, at the college, a lot of them come in saying things like, I want to be an actress in Hollywood. And I usually kind of just go, okay. Clearly you think that it's like so easy to get there. Especially as Black non-Americans. It's not that easy. But usually by the time they come out of the program after 2 years, they understand the work that has to go into whatever their dream is. They recognize that, yes, okay, we can be in the arts in Barbados. And as Vice said, I'm very unapologetic about the fact that my focus is Barbados.
Yeah.
Right.
And so in our program, we focus a lot on them understanding Barbadian culture because it ain't taught in our schools much.
No.
You know, you have a couple of
Okay.
teachers that will teach it because they're involved in culture in some way or another, but it's not really a part of formal curriculum in the way that it should be. And so
Yeah.
when they come to me at BCC, my staff and I, we are all looking at, let's learn about us. Because even if you want to make it in Hollywood, something has to make you stand out. You know,
So-
your individuality has to come.
So,
And I think we have a, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'll let you finish your thought.
Okay, we have a student, a graduate now. He left us at BCC and then he went to, you know, my other alma mater, which is St. Augustine campus of UE. And he is now, well, was because they're closed right now, but he was playing Simba on the West End for the
Right.
last year and a bit.
Right.
And so
Right.
one of the things that he's able to do through achieving that is to show the students that, you know what, it is possible. And fantastic performer, Juane Hines. So he's been able to kind of show that it is possible, but it's not possible to get there if you just kind of sit back and lounge and go, yeah, I want to be an actor in Hollywood or on the West End. You have to put in the work.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we do have happening here, though, is that they recognize if they want to stay in Barbados, they can't just stay in Barbados and decide that they want to perform full time. You're going to be that stereotypical hungry actor. You know, we don't have an industry here that supports full time performers, not in theater at least. And you know, so we do take it very seriously as well, that we teach them other applications of theater. So if you plan to teach, if you plan to work in the applied theater field and technical theater, so we kind of try to expose them to all of those things. And I know that certainly with the launch of the new faculty at UE, they're also going to be exploring those areas and, you know, basically preparing them. If we have tertiary institutions who are now committed to teaching the arts, what happens is that you begin to see that sector bloom a little bit more and more. Hopefully, you know, in the next 10, 15 years, we should see a different sector to what we're seeing today.
Right. Right.
So I wonder if I could jump in there a little bit. So Andre, you mentioned the new faculty open at KFL, and I listened to the welcome address by Professor Udine Barreto. Yeah. What a speech! I was moved by one of the things she said was about embracing our identity. And she emphasized that our identity has come about because of a brutal collision of cultures, which were African, Asian, European, and indigenous.
European.
Yeah. Do we see that as our cultural identity pulling from these different strands of influence, or is there something fresh that has emerged as a result of that collision?
That's a loaded question.
That is
loaded.
That's Philip.
That is loaded. I think, unfortunately, our younger generations don't necessarily see that as, you know, their culture, because there is such an influence of the mass media. And a lot of them know a lot more about American culture than they do about their own history. And so that is something that I keep saying, you know, we need to address in our school system. Because you can't stop it now. You definitely cannot stop, you know, the wave of American culture, you know, Netflix, everything else. You know, you're so accustomed to seeing other people. You're not.
I say that's why you're so many students would be aspiring towards Hollywood, because that is set as that's the target. That's the cream of being an actor.
Exactly.
But isn't part of the issue there, though, Phil, the fact that we talk about tertiary education, and that is one segment of the argument. Okay. If we're not educating the children who are passing through primary school about culture and
it.
identity and how
That
we
is
are
it.
going to inculcate this into the program. Well, by the time they get to UWI, surely that is really, that is
It's
too
hard
late.
at that
Missed
point.
you can
opportunity.
offer that, but is that really on the right level in the landscape?
But Mark,
This is where.
it's hard.
Go ahead.
My boys are 10 and 7, and from young I was teaching them certain things. I remember we had an independence program at a school, and they asked me to speak on cultural identity. And when I got there, they were waiting for, I think, the scouts or something to march in with the flag and do their thing. And the teacher was telling the students, okay, what's the first name of Barbados? Los Barbados. I was like, what? No,
Okay.
it's not. It's not. We've forgotten the indigenous name. And when I went to speak, I said to them, okay, I appreciate your teacher, but the first name of Barbados is Ichiruga Naim. It's not Los Barbados. And I told my sons the same thing.
So we all learning here. as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're taught, right? We are taught our history begins
Los Barbados, the
at
bearded.
that point, which it
Bearded
doesn't.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But it's Ichiruga Naim.
Ichiruga Naim. And I taught my sons. So when they were taught in school that the first name was Los Barbados, in little infant school, they went back to their teachers and went, no, it's not. It's Ichiruga Naim. And they're like,
But it's definitely incumbent on us to make sure that the right curriculum is taught. So that's that Peter Watson you just mentioned. That's my husband who's popped up on mine. But seriously,
Hi, Peter.
He's keeping an eye on you.
But this is the whole argument that I have with I can't imagine that you have a Black History Month in Trinidad or in Barbados, but we have a Black History Month. Personally speaking, I don't think there should be a Black History Month because, why don't we have a Black Jewish or a Jewish month or any other kind of section? And I think it's really that it should be something that's weaved into our curriculum. It should be something that children understand before they even get to school, that it's taught in nurseries, it's part of the structure that they see around us. One thing I do notice in our modern marketing here in the UK, I do notice that they use a lot of mixed heritage families in their adverts. So they've got a Black mum and a white dad, or a Black dad and a white mum. They kind of need to stop kind of half-hearting it. If you're going to go in hard. And it's very much about understanding historically who we are. Yes, I know you've got to look forward and move forward. We need to kind of know, our children need to know who they are about. And it shouldn't be tertiary education as what's been indicated when they find out whether the arts is an option. They should know that actually, I could be an opera singer if I want to. I could start my own drama school. I can run my own studio. It's getting better. But it's still kind of on the margin. It's marginalized. Oh, you want to be a musician? Oh, are you sure? You want to be a sculptor? Are you sure?
Well, I think that's the bigger
what are
thing.
you going to fall back on?
It's back to value. At the moment, across the region, we don't place value in the arts.
No,
right.
we don't.
I was going to add that.
We just don't. And if we be honest when we're talking, we don't. As far as, and by value, I don't necessarily mean the fact that you can make money from it. I mean, we don't place value on the arts and its ability to shape how we view ourselves. And then how we can move beyond where we are, where we came from, where we are, and where we want to go. We don't understand it. If you go back to
take that further back, Andre, because as you said, art is about how you view yourself, and it really is a reflection of identity. So if you don't value art, we're actually not valuing identity and culture.
But that's the point.
And that's
why you look to USA or Europe before you look home.
Exactly.
And the point I was going to make to follow that was, the Indians had this problem also, but they didn't look to Hollywood.
No.
They started their own thing. and sometimes I think this is part of the
movie industry in the world now.
Absolutely. And sometimes this is part of the education journey we have to go on as a region. We can't be afraid to get in there. And you know what? Start out one thing, because we are creative. What, Carrywood? We are a creative hub. But listen, I think, Curtis Jordan, you are one of the few people that I know who took that plunge and went and worked full time in the arts. And surely you must have some stories to tell of the risks that you undertook in trying to do that. What people would have, what you're going to fall back on.
Oh, most definitely. And because what I was going into before, what I was studying was science and engineering. So to move from going from that side of it, and I was also working full time at the Prime Minister's office in technology. And then to walk away from a job in the government, working in a
Eddie is
very
He was a
rare-
madman. He was a madman.
yeah. Something really definitely, but something definitely had to be up with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even I thought something was up with me after 2 months, and you realize you have no salary, and you're like, oh, all right, okay, all right,
Why
okay, getting real.
security, right?
You're getting ready to pick up the
Yeah.
phone and say, "Can I come back?"
I'm telling you, but I'm telling you, there's something that really happens that is like a light bulb in your head or a switch that clicks on that happens when you're standing on your own 2 feet and you're a creative person. It just kicks in. And it's the same thing I believe people talk about when you're a father for the first time, that all of a sudden you know how to provide and you know how to take care of them. I think it's the same thing when you step out and as a creative into the real world, and you have to make it work. I never thought about running a music academy with different branches. Those things were never a part of the plan. Never. As far as I would think, you know what I mean? But it seemed that is how God had it set up, and that's how it goes, you know. So I would tell anybody that wants to step out full time that you go for it if you really feel that it is. I'm not going to hold anybody back because I could be holding back the next Mark Zuckerberg. So I'm telling you, if you feel really impressed to do it, go for it. But then you have to own it. Own the hungry days, own the days you get wet in the rain, own all of it, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's my thought on that.
That's funny. In my book, I have 3 words written: identity, value, and ownership. Those are the 3 words I thought should come out tonight. So
Perfect.
they did it.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
No, but you see, I think when you talk about where you started from with the safe government job, there are a lot of creatives who potentially are watching this show and who are in safe government jobs, you know, and they've got a wealth of talent and a wealth of ideas, right? Because this is the nature of the creatives across our region. But how can we get them to say, step out? And is the structure there to help them to step out?
And that's the thing, and that's to me it really boils down to my faith, because I didn't see anything to step on except what I believed in, you know what I mean? So I stepped on nothing and it became solid, you know what I mean? So I would tell anybody, if you, as I said before, if you are not impressed by it, you like to sing and everything, but you're not feeling like you're supposed to step out there, do not do it. Do not go back, wrong way.
Step away from the edge.
Run. But if you know, because Mark, I remember, as you just said that, I remember beating on the desk in work, making up songs. I remember using my lunch hour to run away and just write songs outside so I could sing or hum something. I remember many years, it was 5 years I worked there, and I know that I couldn't do another month. That is how I knew. I couldn't do another month, no matter what was on the other end. So that is why. So if that is what you feel, then here's what's going on. Step.
I have a little story that started similar to that. So a few years ago, I had a business idea, right? And I thought this seemed like a really credible business idea. So I approached a guy who I knew from my church, who was a successful businessman. You know, he had sold a company and so on, and pitched to him my idea. I told him, this is my idea. And he looked at me and smiled and said, Philip, you are not a businessman. You have great ideas. You always have good ideas, but you're not really a businessman. What you need to do is take your ideas and partner with somebody who cares about the business. who cares about the financial side of things, because that doesn't seem to be your natural inclination. And that sparked something in me. And then the other thing he said was, or take your big ideas and take them into a big company, which is what he did in the end. But what it sparked in me is, as creatives, sometimes we need to invest time in partnership, because there are people out there, because we might lean on passion, and passion is the thing that pays for itself. So, the reward of doing something out of passion is doing it.
Yeah.
But still, if you want a sustainable business and you actually want to have an income coming in, you probably need to start partnering. And maybe this is something that we need to see more of in the Caribbean: partnerships between people who are passionate about what they do, the artistry that they do, and then people who are passionate about seeing it survive and leave a long-lasting legacy, and being able to feed your children, and not just feed them, but feed them well,
Yeah. You've touched on, some of the areas that we talk about in terms of having a clear idea for kind of future focused creative arts. Definitely creative self-expression, the kind of thing that you were talking about, Philip, and having the confidence. But collaboration is so key. There are people who, for example, in the property world, and they do joint ventures. You might have somebody who's got the knowledge about land registry or HMOs or all that kind of jazz. But there's somebody out there who's got the pocket, or there's somebody out there who has the technology.
Yeah.
I think if we are pooling our resources, if you look at what's happening in certain communities where there is strength and growth, they are pooling their resources and they are drawing on each other's experience to kind of get them where they need to be. And I think if we are focused, if we are creative, confident, if there's collaboration, if we're problem solving in the way we work ourselves, and if we are open to something I'm not very good at, open to leveraging feedback, because sometimes we're really afraid, we're kind of self-defense.
Yeah.
But actually, we need to know what went well. I've got this thing that I use in teaching, www, what went well, or EBI, even better if. And those are the two things that we always bring in. Anytime I'm teaching, whether it's a one-to-one, a group session, a 500 voice choir, all right, what did we do well? What could it be better? Even better if, and then it gets us thinking about how we can improve on our serve. And I think we've got so much wealth within our communities. We talk about, particularly in Britain, there's been lots of discussion about the black pound. And if you think about where we start to think about where we spend our money, like 90% is spent everywhere else other than our businesses. And even within the 10% that's remaining, within those businesses, only 2% is spent on businesses that are black owned, for example. So can you live off 2% of what you make? You can't. So we need to start turning it on its head and be purposeful about that as well. But
this goes all the way back, though. This goes all the way back to the whole thing about education and value, right? And valuing, educating ourselves about ourselves, and valuing ourselves as well, to be business people, to back ourselves, as Curtis said. I'm sure you had many a conversation of trying to get people to back you and being told all kinds of reasons why not, or maybe why it wouldn't work. And then it maybe, as you were saying, V, as well, also to keep pushing through that as well, and just continue backing yourself. Because I really hold the thing of valuing ourselves really as one of the main things. And even when I think about that, we talk about, yes, valuing ourselves, but do we think the structures are there? Because we can talk about it, but let's assume for whatever reason, I go into politics and I reach the lofty heights of a ministry of some kind, which many people do. But then when they get there, you still don't see the work being done that they were talking about before they were there.
No.
So what is it? Michelle, for you, do you think the framework is there? Whether it be taxes, or reduce taxes, or to help people in the arts to buy the equipment, to put on their shows, to push things forward, and the same thing for you, Curtis, afterwards? Or do you think the framework is there from a governmental level to structure things outside of festivals? Because we focus a lot of creativity around either Crapova or Carnival in Trinidad, NIFCA in Barbados. I'm sure you got a festival of creative arts of some kind in Trinidad also. But there's a lot that's happening outside that if you're actually going to build something viable
Yeah.
So if you were to ask Michelle and assess where we are now with that, and then look forward to what we think we need, what would it be?
Well, the NCF here, National Cultural Foundation, again, for those who might have joined a little bit later, they do have a business development office that is set up to help artists do that. There are some accommodations in terms of tax waivers, and if you're a registered artist, you can get. I think if you're a registered artist and an entity, because we're talking about partnerships. So if an entity then decides to invest in whatever cultural product you're producing, then they can get certain tax benefits as well. So there are incentives there. What I will say though is that although the NCF has that provision set up, there are a number of artists who don't necessarily trust it. Because if I register with the NCF, do I then have to say how much money I make as an artist? And are you going to try to tax my money, which is already... So it's that kind of double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And, that comes with... I don't think that's a recent thing. I think that is from years and years of challenges between artists and government. Where artists feel like they're not respected, they're not adequately paid. And this is not present government I'm talking about. This is just government in general.
Yeah, in general.
So there are tensions there that I think still need to be eased quite significantly so that we can see that business development office really taking off and supporting artists in the way that they need to. In this time of COVID, this government has set up a fund for artists. So through the NCF, again, you can apply for a grant to do a digital arts project. Sounds really nice, it sounds fantastic. But what does it mean? What is a digital arts project? And that you can kind of make it work, especially in areas of visual arts. When you start thinking of performing arts, we all go like, how? So I think there also needs to be that process of teaching artists how to reshape what they're doing to accommodate this digital reality that we're in right now.
So
earlier,
someone asked a question about animation as well.
Yes.
What's the status of animation in the
we have a growing animation following here. Of course, we have a massive Comic-Con question. AnimeCon. Which is run every year.
Japanese.
Yeah, and so we have a lot of people who are coming out doing animations now. The same NCF as well, they've just invested in doing animations of a couple of cultural projects that they would have had going on.
Pause for a second.
Again, it's
when you say doing animations, where are people who seeing this?
Yeah.
The one that the NCF did would be online. You can actually see it through their website. Giving them a plug, www.ncf.org.
I never saw any.
Yeah, but who else knows about it?
Exactly. So
knows?
that's exactly why I'm asking.
That is the thing. So NCF they launched theirs, I think, during COVID actually. So there really is a need for us to now work on that side of it, the marketing, getting it out there. Because even like last year, they would have done one of my plays into a comic book. And there are people who knew about it, but then it was not widespread, right? So we do need to look at that idea of marketing and stuff like that a lot more.
But this comes back to the collaboration.
Yeah.
Come back to the collaboration Phil was talking about, because while as artists or creatives, yes, we need to collaborate. And this is where I go back to structures and the underpinning of, as a nation, understanding the value and then lining up the structures in order to propel that forward. Because I would assume that if you do something like that, then there's something that comes in with, the media houses, or, in Barbados it's CBC, in Trinidad and different and stuff. And then showcasing that work so a wider audience can see it. Whereas,
I can't,
and that's some of the
speak
frustration I see.
I can't speak too much to how the NCF has managed that, because I don't work at the NCF anymore. I used to. I'm not there now, so I don't know what their process is now. But I do know that they have a marketing department that has been, very active on social media. but there's always that question of how do you grow your audience? For
Yes.
me,
Yeah.
my primary partner with the work that I do is the Barbados Museum.
Okay.
And again, that is because my focus is on things Barbadian and archiving our intangible cultural heritage. And so the museum for me is a beautiful fit for what I do,
Right.
right? So that's my primary partner. But even with us, the museum, and then we work through my students at BCC as well. And even though that partnership is really quite phenomenal, we are still also looking for ways to partner with others to continue to improve what we are offering. So there is a need to do that, and I think we also need to get to a point where we are not solely dependent on government support, because governments will change. And if this government now supports the arts, and then another government gets voted in and they don't, if you only depend on government support, then
It's
It's not
gone.
going to happen.
it's gone.
So let's understand something here though, because if we go back to where we were talking about borderless and taking this thing across the globe, right?
Yeah.
That is huge upskill in collaborative terms. Okay?
Yeah.
And if we can't get the collaborations right into island and regionally, how then do we think we are going to be able to participate in the borderless collaborations that will inevitably come our way? Because what I'm hearing really is there's a little bit of an underpinning of, do we trust what's happening here to really move things forward? There's a real issue of trust that seems to be the underlying factor here that needs to be
There's
resolved.
a huge issue of trust. But Mark, here's the funny thing, right? The trust issues tend to be between artists and government, right?
Okay.
You will find artists are always looking for ways to collaborate among themselves, both locally and regionally. Remember, I'm saying remember, I don't know if you're aware, but we had a movement in theater in the 70s going into the 80s where we were touring the region. You had Jamaica come into Barbados, Barbados went to Trinidad, we went to Antigua, Guyana, and everybody was sharing. What happened though? It became financially impossible to do that with theater because of all the taxes that were introduced for air travel in the region. So it
The number
becomes
of people that need to
expensive.
travel, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it becomes expensive. But, so we are still looking for ways to collaborate. I certainly, again, I can't possibly say how important it was for me to have gone to St. Augustine, because I met people from the region who are still today my colleagues, and we're
You
still
created links.
collaborating.
You created your network.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Curtis, I
Yeah.
want to ask you something there, because I must admit, I love to see the creativity coming out of Trinidad, whether it be with animations, music, theater. The creativity is just happening. How do you think those expressions come about so vibrantly that the rest of the region can learn about? And I see so much collaboration from Trinidad artists all over the region as well. It's just amazing to see. From your experience and vantage points, what is it that you guys are doing that the rest of us can learn from?
I think, and I just sitting here and just listening to Michelle share, I've learned so much about even ourselves. You know what I mean? I realized that we do not have a trust issue with our government, and as artists, we have more trust issues with the sub-organizations like the COTS and those copyright people. We have issues with them. Yeah, we have war with them. but the government has been on our side, because the government has been pumping millions into Carnival, and that's $300 and something million US dollars into Carnival, and pumping it into so many different aspects of the industry. And over the past 5 years, it was very, very clear that the government was interested in diversification more than anything. Diversification of the industries across Trinidad and Tobago, coming from out of the 50s, 60s, being fully oil-based. And you know what I mean? And we move from that, and we have been moving from that. And I'm not sure if you all hear any political
They
behind
want your
still,
vote.
but
heard it.
They want your vote.
I'm trying to keep on my trend of talk. I'm
Yeah,
not here to
but there's
talk.
loads of, you said there's loads of trust.
carry on.
Go with
Quiet
me.
down that you on the show, man.
Yeah, go with me. Go with
This
me.
is the
Go with
important
journey.
point. Keep going, man. Keep going.
Keep
Go
going,
with the
Gary.
journey. Go with the journey. So it's from those times come up. I had to build that platform to kind of get to the point where we've come out of that focus of one industry, which would have affected the value of the others, which would have initially affected the value of the arts. So now we've moved out of that and have come a long way. I have seen a lot of investment and thought being put into how we value, because at the end of the day, is a dollar value. It comes down to the government, because when they have to export this, if it's not bringing money back, then why value it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if they pump into it and they push it and they see millions of dollars coming back, then it is something viable for the government to continue. And I think that they started seeing it, especially for the past 2-3 years. Where there's so many things have been set up, and even looking over the current government's manifesto, number one, from the previous 5 years, we would have seen what they've established, what they promised to establish in the arts have been established. In terms of the concert halls that we could perform in great spaces, and our recordings would look on a whole different level, you know what I mean? And the investment, and of course the incentives also. We've also had the incentives, like what Michelle was talking about, where the government would ask, the public sector, the private sector, to invest. We had that, and I think they moved beyond that point of just asking people to help, but jumping in and making it happen for the artists themselves. And I've started to see it, and they've reached all the way to creating an artist registry, and you register and you can get grants, you can get your equipment for your studio, you can apply for exemption or stuff to go, like traveling overseas. Now you can even apply for the government to pay for you to go overseas, and it's a grant. You don't have to pay it back, and all of that. So it's becoming
I think I'm
more
gonna
and
move
more.
back to Trinidad.
It's becoming more and more evident. And the thing is, it's not only the music. Now, I would have spoken about music because that's what I'm into, but the industry in Trinidad the creative industry in Trinidad is as diversified as the word art itself. You know what I mean? And because of that, they really focus on fashion. They focus on theater. They focus on every aspect you could possibly do now. And we are starting to see people getting more and more interested in it. And I think it is something very, it is going to be viable, especially now where we are moving now into the space where everything is going to be digital, as well as more people are behind screens, more people have more time on their hands than before. Last 10 years, we have become so busy. We have had to turn back the clock and slow down. More people have been watching local movies over the past 4 months than any time before in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. And more people have been consuming local content. So therefore, if the government is wise, or any government is wise, they would look at those things, and they should have a lot more public consultation as to how now they could reach the grassroots and take them up to that level as everybody else, as the Marshall Montanos and everybody else, you know what I mean? So that's our space.
V, you wanted to jump in?
There's a couple of things. There's definitely a rise, I find, in the artisan sectors, and people are interested in and working within local, or buying local, or invested into local. I think also being aware of what's available is really key. And another, that's such a simple thing that some people aren't aware that there is an arts fund, or that there is Princess Trust funding, and things and hoops to jump through, quite simple things to go to. And I think knowledge is power. It really is powerful to know. But also, I think there's also, in terms of like tourism, if you think about London, you think about the West End. If you think about America, you think about Broadway. Or does that make sense? It's almost like surely the tourist aspect needs to come into play, that not only do we want to go to the beautiful islands because they are beautiful and luscious and warm and the people are just gorgeous, but there's so much more. It's almost like as part of you visiting our nations, you need to explore our art. Look at our art. Look at what you're going to find. Look at what you can take away with you, not just some little kind of seashell thing, but real, in-depth, quality, highbrow is what we're offering across the islands and making it. Actually, this is what we are. This is what we do.
But I think before we even think about what an extra-regional tourist would experience, I think we need to do that for ourselves as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And we should be that we traveling to Jamaica and going to where they do their high-quality productions as a West Indian and learning more about what they're doing. And Jamaicans going to Barbados and Trinidad and what's not. I think far too often, and it goes back to what Michelle said, we look past ourselves. Whenever it comes to any area that we want to get involved in, we look past ourselves because of what we see coming in, I guess, predominantly through television, just North America or the UK. So we tend to look straight past ourselves, you know. But I think there's a viable intra-regional economy that can actually flourish via the arts, you know. And I'm hoping that this time of, you know, of COVID and people being able to pause, reflect, and look internally a bit, actually coming out of it, I'm hoping that be a big thing where we actually start to look amongst ourselves, because economies of scale is important. And Barbados trying to create a company that the economy of scale will help people to go into the arts full time, or when it comes to theater, might not be viable. But a touring company with support, structural support from a policy perspective, as well as support, economic support, maybe from governments or from the private sector, would actually make that possible as well. So I think there's just a lot there that I think we just need to not always look beyond ourselves first.
And I've heard you made this point a lot, Andrea, about, you know, whether we like it or not, the Americans have shaped who we have become, you know, over the course of the 20th century. Their culture has intertwined itself across all of our islands. This is the time to reimagine what we can do now with trying to influence the generation that is following us, because we're not going to get many opportunities like this. This is the time to make it happen. And V, you touched on a really interesting point earlier when you said that Curtis and Michelle really should be looking to see what they can bring to places like the UK to help shape and influence what we do over here. What do you think that needs to look like?
Do you know, I think we talk about the mindset. The mindset is quite important, and how we even, I think Andre just touched on it, how when we're spending the pound, why are we looking elsewhere when we've got it within our own communities? So showing how it's done, I guess is probably one of the best ways that I could put it. I'm not talking necessarily about an expo, although that would be quite nice, but to actually show how it's done. You know, just we have. I look at, just taking my son for an example. He's gone into property sourcing. He's a property sourcer. He's only 20 and he's doing very well. And already he is mentoring another young Black person, showing him how it's done. Whether this young person goes into it or not, that's their opinion. It's up to them. But it's about, it's just, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, in terms of what you're achieving and how it's done. I don't know if I've got the magic answer, but I do believe that mentoring or showing this is how we've done it, this is how it's been put into play, even how the curriculum, how we explore how the curriculum really should be effective within schools at a younger age, for example. I don't know. It's just a few ideas kind of going around. If someone's got the answer, you know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
No,
I don't have the answer, but I like to think in terms of frameworks, as Mark and Andre would know very well.
Here comes another one.
You never know that.
But I think there's sort of three things that we probably need to have in place, or three perspectives on this. One is how can we be distinctive, how can we be collaborative, and how can we be competitive. So I think in terms of being distinctive and being collaborative, I think we do that very well in the Caribbean. So we have a distinctive market, we have a distinctive sound, a distinctive genre of music, a distinctive look and feel and expectation of theater. When it comes to collaborative, you'd sort of see loads of, especially Trinidad has done a lot of these collaborations with American artists and so on, which has raised their profile up.
Right.
Yeah. The area of moving into how is this competitive comes back to this concept of no, we're borderless. So we're not just playing local or national. We're not just playing regional, but no, we're playing global. And that means we want to get the value of what we're doing to be as good as or better than the quality of what comes out of Hollywood, what comes out of the West End, that sort of stuff. And getting to that level of competitiveness can only come by having a cycle in place of one, understanding the audience. So being able to engage and define who is your audience, understanding what their needs are, what is it they want to see, having a production line that gets you through efficiently so that you can sustain it, and then having the platforms where you can get your work out so that people know about you. It's endorsed, it's advertised, it's marketed. And I think that's the next place that we need to be thinking of. How do we become competitive?
I agree with that, but I noticed you said just now about you benchmark us with Hollywood there again, right? And that still plays on my mind, because I say it's not so much about Hollywood, and here's why. I remember, at least to me anyway, 10 years ago, I went home from the UK, and the biggest thing going on was Medea. Well, 15 years ago, probably Medea when was starting, as well as Nigerian movies.
Yes.
Now, 15 years ago, Nigerian movies were nothing like Hollywood movies.
No.
That's the honest truth. There were just a lot of them.
Yeah.
And people follow the stories. People follow the stories. And, the song was bad, the lighting was bad, all kinds of stuff. But the point is, they were doing
long.
it.
Yeah.
And they were long.
Yeah. Yes.
For me, the point is they were doing it. And now you're seeing Nigerian movies on Netflix. You're seeing Nigerian movies now getting nominated for awards. Extra. We just got to start and start to value ourselves.
But listen, you and I have had
distinctive. Yeah.
We've had so many conversations about this topic, and the fact that as Caribbean people, the reason we don't start is because we set the quality up here. And we want the quality to be up here before we start. So we don't want it to look like how the Nigerian movies looked 15 years ago, but we fail to realize actually that is part of the journey. And you've got to start.
Yeah.
And not only that, we consumed it when the quality was not good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
You got a point there, Curtis?
there is something about seeing an image of yourself being portrayed in the media. There's something about it that draws people. And when you think about it, listen, the Nigerian movies. When I was in England, I was studying African film and theater, and I was introduced to these Nigerian movies by my Nigerian cousin. And the first time I sat down and watched it, I was like,
"Was this?"
I could not understand why the girl was walking for 5 minutes on a cart road watching an airplane. For 5 minutes of my life wasted. But there is something about seeing yourself represented that really begins to make you buy in as a people. And what happened in Nigeria is that when they started off just filming on a little camera phone, they have now improved their industry.
Unbelievable, some of the movies that you see, man.
Yeah. And the same thing happened in Barbados. We had films like Forgy and Murder that came out, and Badness and these things. And whether you liked it or not, right? Because some people said, for instance, with Badness, that it was representing a ghetto culture in Barbados.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that it became very popular. But it was very popular because you were seeing an image, that you were hearing a voice that was very much our voice.
Yeah.
Right? You were hearing our voice, you were seeing our people, you were seeing characters that were familiar, and that's what we want. I don't think a lot of people know that it's what they want, but it's something that we love to do. And that's why when you see some of these films coming out, the films that came out from Trinidad, listen, everybody rush and watch Bazodi. Mash out, isn't it? Everybody rush to watch. You're rushing to watch the things that have some sense of familiarity to you. And I think we discount that. We need to begin to look inward again and then project outwards. We need to, and something that I remember Nettleford talks about a lot, inward and then outward.
He comes up every week, man. Curtis, you wanted to jump in on this point?
Almost every week, man.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to share because I don't think that the export of the question that you was asking V just now. I don't think the export or the impact of Caribbean art to the world is something new at all.
No.
Because that has been happening since Bob Marley days. So let's us journey to Jamaica a bit. Jamaica to me is the epiphany of what it is for a Caribbean life to be put out to the world. Because
good point.
they don't for a minute hold back. A matter of fact, the entire planet knows Jamaica. A matter of fact, people think that Trinidad is Jamaica too. So why
Exactly.
is that? Because it was much more than the art that they purported. Jamaicans became the music, and the music became Jamaica, and the art became a way of life for them. So when they went out, they sold a way of life to the entire world to partake of. Come and partake of this carefree, laid back, just live, sun, sea, and sand, and good vibe. They sold that to the planet, and people bought it. You know what I mean? And they didn't try to mix it up. They didn't try to twist it. A matter of fact, yesterday I saw Buju Banton on one of those massive interviews. I think it was Trevor Noah. He was on, and the first thing he said,
The Breakfast Show. I think he was on the Breakfast Show.
Yes. And the first thing he said was something to the effect of course, I'm from Jamaica, the land of good food, good sea, good sun. And he just went all out there.
I'm a Jamaican.
Oh yeah. So they sell a way of life. If Caribbean people start to sell a way of life, our way of life, and not try to have a easy international mask, so we can look like everybody else.
I was going to say that. Because the thing about what happened in Jamaica is that Jamaica embraced it.
Of course,
As a people,
everybody's in
they
it.
embraced
Everybody's
it.
in it. They live it. They live
Themselves.
it.
We do have the challenge. We do have the challenge of first and second generation Black British, for example, who don't have that. I can speak. People roll their eyes if I get on one. Talking about Jamaica and the island, its beauty. But we've got first and second generation individuals who don't. It's like an arm wrestle, a cultural arm wrestle. You're tussling between the really strong influences of the West, if you like, or America. But I do believe that. And we often say to ourselves, we can't put ourselves out there. We can't really express what we really want to express until it's perfect and until it looks like just so. But as we've already covered and we've touched on, it's great to have something to aspire to, but we have got to start somewhere. And I think the difficulty is you've been to Britain, Michelle, so you would have seen this, that you are a Caribbean-born individual, and expounding everything that's great about the Caribbean and your island and your home. Over here, we've got several voices kind of battling with our young people. It's not so simple as to say this is the culture. They'll be saying, oh, that's my grandma's culture, or my granddad used to tell me about that. So there's more than just. It's not just that it's going to be the first thing that comes to the fore, and this is why I think the power of the youth and generation that you have, and really showing actually this is the norm for you and your generation now. Does that make sense?
But I also think that there's a need to hear the voice of those first and second generation Caribbean British, nationals, because the funny thing about culture is that it is ever changing. It constantly evolves. And we still have to kind of make sense of where they are as well. And I think that there's value in where they are. So, okay, you've grown up in perhaps a Caribbean household or with Caribbean grandparents that you know. How has that influenced how you process your life and your culture as Black British? So there's still that question that has to be answered, I think. And absolutely, we can teach them about the cultures that would have influenced where they are now in terms of their parents' heritage. But we also need to not discount their own experiences in this time.
But this is why no, go ahead, Phil.
I just going to say, I understand these challenges that she's presenting there very, very well. Like all three of us, Andre, Mark, and myself, we grew up in Barbados. We were educated in Barbados. So we've grown up with Black educators, Black politicians, Black business leaders, Black philosophers, and so on. But then when you come to the UK, and we know we have children, and they don't have that, right?
Yeah,
And that does play on your sense of identity, and you start to
absolutely.
question. And I can see that they're questioning, well, am I really British? But am I Barbadian
And my
or am I
character,
Caribbean? Because of
yeah,
I've only been there about 3 times in my life, that
Yeah.
sort of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a real significant challenge there.
Yeah, but I think
sure.
this is why the cultural industries in the region are actually so important. I mean, yes, I see what you're saying, V, but also to counter that a little bit, there's so much emanating from Jamaica to a point that so many people are proud still to say, whether third or fourth generation, that they are Jamaican,
Yeah.
and they consume a lot of stuff from Jamaica, whether it be the music, whether it be
yeah,
TV,
food,
that kind of stuff, the food, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's why when we say creative industry, that's also another aspect of it that's extremely important. Beyond exporting to tourists in the wider world, we can export to ourselves, those who have left and living
Yeah.
somewhere else, and the other generations. And I think that also fosters a sense of belonging and a sense of pride as well. So I think that's also another reason why it's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's probably a good point to really look at where do we get that interregional movement now. Michelle talked about it happening back in the 70s, and I wonder if part of this whole reimagination, Curtis, you are someone who spent a lot of time going across the region. Do you see part of the reimagination now being a lot more of regional integration, regional arts, being part of who you are going to go on to establish yourself as in the future?
Definitely, if it is something that we want. So it's something that we need to desire. You know what I mean? We need to desire collaboration, because that is how we're gonna move forward. With the strength of the Caribbean is within the Caribbean move, and not just a Trinidad move or Jamaican move or a Barbados move, but it is going to be as one Caribbean from the United Nations of the Caribbean, what I mean, going out to the entire world. I'm telling you, and I think for us to really move forward, we really need to go to what the base is. The base would definitely be, my suggestion would be the need. What is the human need for art and entertainment? What is the need? The need will transcend whether it is being viewed in real, or being viewed by a phone, being viewed by a laptop. The need being met with transition any device or time or shape, as long as the need is being met. So we have to sit down and now figure out, as a Caribbean region, what is the need of firstly the people within our region, and what could we use art to meet that need, and then what is the need of those that are Caribbean living outside of the Caribbean, to meet that need, and then what is the need of those that love Caribbean culture. If we could meet those needs, it doesn't matter what COVID come, COVID go, digital media or whatever the case is. I think we would make some serious headways, collaboratively, into the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my contribution.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because you're talking about meeting needs, and standing up and saying, yes, I can meet those needs takes a lot of confidence, but it also takes a lot of self-value, and say, I value what it is that I bring
I have to
to meet
offer,
these needs that
Yeah.
could be national, regional, extra-regional, global.
yeah,
Yeah,
So yeah, I like that.
and especially if I zoom in a little further, is in we have an entertainment need. We have a we have a need for our own entertainment, and our own culture. That is a need. It is a human need to be entertained. We entertain ourselves, and we speak. We communicate via art. That is also a need. And if we're able to meet those needs using art, dance, drums, whatever the case is, music, I think it really would matter so much with the mediums. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's my thoughts. Yeah.
So I'm probably going to steal a little bit of Andres' thunder, because he talks about this quite a bit. We have the need to be entertained, but we also need to be informed.
Yes.
But something that we talk about quite a bit is that our mode for informing quickly goes into sort of formal documentary style,
Yep.
where there could be a
Yes.
chance of teaching some of that beautiful history Michelle was talking about
In art.
through drama
Yeah.
and through theater as well, and still being very authentic and true to the historical narrative that it wants to represent.
Of
So I know
course.
if
Yeah.
there are particular thoughts on that.
Definitely, but that has been how it's been for a while in terms of, especially in Tobago, their Tobago heritage festivals, and even what happens normally in the class. A lot of what they do in class is very dramatic. They would tell stories of what would have happened in the schoolyard via art on in front of the classroom. So it's there, but it just needs to be cultivated on a national scale and international scale to tell our stories. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Indeed.
Even like in church, we love to tell drama and product. We tell everything. That's the core of what we do in the Caribbean. We tell stories.
We're storytellers, absolutely.
Because we are storytellers.
I think.
That is, yeah.
So I was just going to say the one
Go
word
ahead,
that really stood out for me in what you were saying, Curtis, is about heritage. So many times we're talking about history, but actually heritage takes it to a place of ownership where it's reflective. You know, you're walking past the room and you see someone on the television that looks like you. It's like a fish hook. It kind of draws you in. And I do think it's very much about making sure that what we put out and who we are and what we represent is strong heritage-wise, not just history, because history can be taken one way or another, as we've seen. But heritage is unquestionable. It's something who you are. It's your heartbeat. It flows through the vein of who you are. And I think that's something that we really could do with a lot more of, really pushing the heritage. Not ignoring history, but pushing heritage more than anything else.
And on that point of heritage, it's really unique. We could be watching Grammy Awards and hear Rihanna just speaking her natural heritage language, and we feel fully connected to what the whole Caribbean
For real.
feels.
Everybody
that we
start
are
licking
on
our
that
shot
stage.
as soon as you hear the beat in that sense.
Everybody, the whole Caribbean. It's true. The whole Caribbean is on that stage with just one accent from us.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And, something to cherish, you know, and push.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Well, you know, heritage is my thing, and the funny part of it for me is that I only started to learn about this idea of Caribbean identity when I was in Trinidad. I didn't learn that here. And then when I was in the UK, I was working with the National Trust, had a project running at the time, and I was working with them in Hackney at Sutton House. And that's when all of a sudden I went like, whoa, we can teach about ourselves using art. Okay. You know, they had these children come in with their parents from one of the schools in the district, and they had to engage with the exhibits in that space. You know, we had an artist facilitator who would come in and she would tell stories. Sometimes there's a big picture of a woman on the wall, and then the story suddenly becomes that she's doing a tea party, and the next week they're doing a tea party. You know, they started to do crests of their family based on crests that might have been done in a Georgian or Victorian era or whatever. And I started to ask myself, why are we not teaching these things here? Why are we not engaging? I mean, we have so much around us in Barbados. Barbados is like a walking history island, you know? There's so many things that, you know, you walk through. We walk through Bridgetown. We're born, we're raised here. You know, you walk through Bridgetown, you walk through Bridgetown. You don't sit down to think about, oh my goodness, there's significance in the architecture of Bridgetown. You know, we don't think about those things. And
it's so true.
That's one of the reasons why I've taken the stance that I've taken, because in my mind, I learned about my history and my heritage as an adult in a foreign country. In a foreign country. And I don't think that should be my children's story.
No, I agree. And I think, you know, we talk a lot about education and the education system and how much it has to bear on how our understanding of ourselves. But even the more I think about it as well, you know, and Philip said it, you know, something I always harp on about media. And by media, I mean the arts and culture and creatives industries can do more in my opinion, to help us understand who we are than even a classroom. And I go back and I think about it, if I think about, say, the American movie industry or television industry, if you think all the way back, your mind has been shaped about the wild, wild west through watching Westerns
General Custer.
without going in a classroom. Right? Unfortunately, it means that our minds have also been shaped to have very little empathy for the American Indian, because it's just the way our minds were shaped through entertaining television shows. We all wake up on Saturday morning, but you watch Rawhide. Couldn't see a thing really, because it was always shot in the dark for whatever reason. But for whatever reason, you were that. You actually identify with General Custer from a bravery perspective, without actually fully understanding. Our mind was being shaped to go with him.
They're killing the indigenous people.
And he's out there. And by the time you realize it, you're 25, 30 years old, and you're like, hang on. Yeah. And I was buying cowboy and Indian hat and playing, playing the games when we were young. So I think there's a lot to do with us understanding our heritage, our culture, who we are, and I think the cultural and creative arts has a lot to do with that, and plays an extremely important part in that.
We take it for granted as well, because with the work I'm doing at the museum, we did a production once that focused on folk songs of Barbados. And we play these folk songs as kids, so John Belly Mama, John Giddy Cold Water, all these things. And
I love it.
Actually, that one was interesting, because the productions I do at the museum, they're all interactive productions. So the audience, there really is no separation between audience and performers. They get involved.
Yeah.
And we're playing the ring games associated with the folk songs, and John Giddy Cold Water comes up because it's a favorite folk song in Barbados, right?
Of course.
You have to sing it for us, Michelle.
There.
It probably needs a bit of visual accompaniment.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But the funny thing about that one is that a lot of people do not think about what they're saying. And what we did in that production was that we broke down the meanings of these songs. And, when we played that particular one, everybody, young and old, they're all out there and they're dancing and, they're going down and everything. And then it's interesting to hear even how those songs have evolved. So, we had a basic song, John Giddy Cold Water, John Giddy Cold Mash, before the coca holler, John Giddy Cold whoopsie whoopsie bang bang, whoopsie whoopsie full stop. The young people are going, whoopsie whoopsie bang bang, pushing back bang bang, walking up. The story has evolved. It has evolved. And of course, they were all traumatized when we told them the meaning of the song. All of them were traumatized. Oh my God. I'm not going to do that here. But they were all traumatized, suffice to say.
That's funny.
But then we did another production where I think, in our generation, growing up, we know about Sam Lord's Castle.
Yeah.
I kid you not when I say that I have students who do not even know that a castle existed or exists.
Yeah.
They just think it's a bathroom, right? It's like, but the bathroom.
No way. Wow.
They
don't know who Sam Lord is then either.
Yeah.
They don't. No. But here's the funny thing. There are a lot of people, even in our generation, who don't know about the other pirate that is famous to Barbados, which is Stede Bonnet. And we did a production on Stede Bonnet. It was a beautiful production. We had all kind of shadow puppetry and people speaking in pirate language and everything. And these children came from a primary school. And I visited the primary school like more than a month and a half or so after the show. And when the children saw me, they all started to sing the songs from the production. And this is how folk songs are made. Right? Yeah. This is how the songs come about, because you're teaching the history. The history is encapsulated in the song. Sometimes we forget about the history, like in John Giddy Cold Water. We forget about that. But if we want to really begin to give these children a sense of what our history is, we have to integrate the arts. Children learn by doing. They learn by play.
So listen, before we bring this home, there are a couple of questions that were dropped in by some folks in our audience this evening, and particularly this one about away from Jamaica and the West Indies? Are the young spending their money listening and watching local artists to a point that it will generate long-term income for local artists? I wonder if you've got a brief thought on this, Curtis.
Are they spending their money listening and watching? I think where we all put our value, we all see the value. So if, for example, let me give you an example. We have different coffee shops in Trinidad and Tobago. But when Starbucks showed up, most of the people here never even taste Starbucks. But because everybody eye went up like this, Starbucks. Everybody think that they need to go to Starbucks and spend their money because we all psychologically put something of value to it. So people are not spending on local art because everybody that local, okay.
Yeah.
That
So it goes back to value
attitude.
again.
So it goes right
The
back
same
to
thing.
value. So
Right back to value.
I have found that within, for example, my daughter was talking about thrift shopping. It's all very cool to kind of do it local and it's all very artsy. It's almost like our culture has to be cool for some people to embrace it.
yeah, I understand. Yeah. I feel
Or embraced by someone else externally
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
before we embrace
Yeah,
it
we're
ourselves.
looking for this external validation. But we need to
Always,
validate
always.
ourselves.
Yes.
it's to start at home.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a good one. So we need to start at home. So let's say, Michelle, Prime Minister Motley say, I give you, what's your ask? Post-COVID season, what's your ask?
Ooh.
What can we do?
Wow.
Policy, structural, everything. What's your ask from a cultural, creative perspective to help us propel this thing further?
And we're
What would
coming
you
to
say?
you, Curtis, and V with
And
the same
Curtis,
question.
prepare. You guys can get the same question. What would you say,
Okay.
Michelle?
Well, first of all, now that culture is situated within the Prime Minister's office, I am expecting a lot. I'm expecting to see a lot more attention being given to culture, not only in the educational system, but also being given to culture in the recognition that it's a part of our life. It's not supposed to be separate. It's not the thing that you do once a year, but our culture is a daily expression of who we are. I do want to see a revamping of our educational system that incorporates culture in a meaningful way, so that it's not just that you have drama club or dance club or music club on Friday evenings because there's something to do extracurricularly, but that we really integrate it and help children to understand who they are, problem solve even. There's so much problem solving that can happen in a drama class or a music class, dance class. We learn social interaction, all these things to our culture. I have a lot of asks. This is a bad question to ask me because my list is long.
Prime Minister Martin ain't got a lot of time.
She ain't got a lot.
Let me try it.
The elevator
3
pitch, the
quick
elevator
points.
It's in an elevator pitch, so we got a lot of problems to solve. But we definitely do need a national, and I'm going to say this carefully, we need a national school of the performing arts.
Ooh.
Well, let's not say performing arts, creative arts. That school already exists at BCC, by the way, but we now need the investment in that school. It is not
Great
formally
profile.
seen as a national school of the performing arts, but certainly we are, because BCC is a national institution and we are doing all the creative arts imaginable, really, except maybe animation we haven't put on stream yet. So I think investment needs to be, really pumped into the arts from that perspective, because we are training the next generation of professional artists that are going to come out and take this thing forward. Let's
boost the
get it to an
economy.
international, let's get it to an international market. We are tired as artists of the talk. We're now in a space where we want to see action. If you're talking about exporting our art, let's talk about not just exporting it because it looks nice and it's a nice thing to send to Carifesto or to send to wherever. Let's export the art and let's now make this thing into the industry that it can be, because we ain't there yet. But let's make it viable for the artists. And it needs, there's a lot of work that has to go into that. And if Prime Minister Motley's listening, I'm happy to have a conversation.
I'm sure she is. I'm sure she is. I'm sure she is.
Many people listening, or someone connected to her is listening, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Curtis, the good thing,
I'm
the good
easy
thing
to
is that
find.
you get to choose which prime minister you want to answer this question to.
In your case, you got to say the government, Curtis.
So the government.
Well, what do I say? I don't want to give out any hints about the new government, but I will speak to Mr. Dr. Rowley. If you're listening, Dr. Rowley, here's what's happening. This is what we need as the creatives within our community. Number one, the continued direct financial support. We don't need it to be around it. We want a direct cash in hand, because true artists would actually use that cash to make more art more than anything else. That's the very truth. That's one. We want the continued support of intellectual property and the educating of the artists around in their intellectual property, as well as the supporting of the move of art digitally. So full support of the art moving digitally, because that will in turn help us to go global more than anything else. And of course, one of the things that have been on my thought, and would be my last point, is that if the government could support us moving art from the informal sector to the more formal sector, where you see art and entertainment within all facets and classes, throughout society, and that you see the use of creativity in the boardroom, and you see the use of creativity in the preschool. You know what I mean? So those are some of the points that I would love Dr. Rowley to see for the next 5 years.
You're lining up yourself for a permanent secretary job, man.
That's the application.
Oh gosh.
And
just saying.
Of course, the UK has very same challenges. Yourself, what were you going to say to Mr. Johnson?
Oh, well, number one, anyway, no, that thing I can't say on air.
You ain't getting nothing.
For me, I would like to see the integration. I think we've touched on this. The integration within the curriculum. Not this. There's nothing wrong with having a Black History Day. Fine, whatever. But it needs to be integral to everything we're learning. If I wanted to watch a film about what happened in the wars with if I typed in Nazi film and I wanted to find out about what happened within that setting, I'd like to see the same type of thing. So it's actually easy, and it's like the way we work. It's normal for us to have heritage at the forefront within our curriculum, not tentatively, not loosely, not for the few, but for the masses, for everybody. I would really like to see daily representation, again, not just to please the little policy makers over here, but real invested representation. I understand how music is. I obviously speak as a musician, but the music is so powerful. There's mathematics in it. There's the neuroscience involved in music. I don't even all dendrites and how it works in your brain, all the rest of it. It's so powerful, and we have had within the arts, particularly with the new EBAC that Mr. wanted his name. He pushed back the arts and made it like something that, again, only those who could afford private tuition could really invest in that. And many of our young people of colour, we're not necessarily investing into the arts. We're not going to put aside and push our pupils and our children into that. I'd really like to see a heritage champion. As in, you got somebody who represents your school. When I went to my grammar school, when we had to go out, and we had the deputy head girl and the head girl who always represented the school, and anything needed to be said was said through these individuals, or anything that needed to be questioned was questioned through these individuals. It would be fantastic to have a heritage champion who would really kind of value and raise the profile of all heritages being represented in schools or across the nation. And I guess for me, the final thing is money talks, but action's really critical. We've had a real eye-raising moment where lots of noises were made about the theatres being closed, and it's only because people made noises where all of a sudden 1.5 billion was put in, but it's only people can only perform to professionals, but we can't perform to a layperson. That's just absolute nonsense. It's automatically marginalizing our young people, our young creatives that don't have the money, that aren't already with it. I'm getting really hot under the collar, but it's very, very imbalanced. And I think it should be for all, and everyone should be encouraged, and everyone should be valued within the art. And it's not just singing, it's not just art, acting and drama, but you talked about animators, we talk about composers, and there are people out there doing this, but there's nobody really championing them in the way that it needs to be done. And I think maybe a heritage champion will be something that really does something great for across the heritage. Yeah.
Well, tremendous. Tremendous.
Okay.
My little opinion.
No, I think that's really good, and it's interesting what you said, because you're absolutely correct. Because here we're speaking about the Caribbean in one sense, and the fact that we might not value the arts, and we're talking about the business acumen of people in the creative space and what's not, and we can question that and talk about that as well. But here in the UK, where we know there's loads of business behind the arts, but in these times they were still forgotten and left behind. Yeah. So it's interesting the way how the psyche across the board, needs to change, and understand that people in the arts contribute so much to the economy that they need to be looked after just as much as someone in a law firm or a media house or what have you. So that's really important.
I was just going to mention something that I remember from Professor Barato's speech, where she talked about the orange economy, which is a term I've not heard before.
Yeah.
I thought that was
never heard of it.
Yeah. But she said we have to make sure the orange. Okay, it seems as though it came from a book that was written recently by the same people. Yeah. But something she said was we have to make sure that the orange economy does not become the plantation economy.
Yes.
She didn't elaborate on what she meant by that, but I got a sense what that meant, and V was talking about that it's not for the few, but for the masses.
The many,
And I think that's the real danger here with the creative economy or the orange economy, that very few might benefit from it, but loads of people working very hard.
Yeah.
And it's how do we make this into something that's sustainable, that doesn't go down that route.
I also got the impression she was also saying that you want to be entertained, or you want us to entertain you, but you don't want to value us. Yeah. And you don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
Which is, you got to make sure it doesn't.
Whole other conversation.
I think I rewound that part of the speech like 4 times and listened to it actually, just to hear the connection, because I was like, oh man, that's such a powerful line. But I think that's what she's saying is that and I think Rex Netherford also talked about this a while ago as well. The fact that the creative industries, you don't let us just be here to entertain you. That's not all we're here for. We do so much more. You've got to place value on it, and it enriches our lives. Heritage, it tells you about your heritage. It helps you understand where you've come from, so you understand where you're going and where you can go and what's not. So I think that's what she was talking about there. So that's interesting.
I think that Rex Nettleford comment was organic relationships between cultural identity and artistic creation, which I thought was beautifully said by the professor. Listen, this has been an awesome conversation this evening with you guys, Michelle, Curtis, and V. Yeah. And like everything else that happens in the living room, we can go on for hours. But it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
No, I think
I enjoyed being here as well.
Thank you.
Indeed, it's been great. And I think the good thing about having you guys practitioners here as part of it as well is, you can have discussions and you can bring in those in quote unquote high places to have a chat and skirt around the issues, but not necessarily get down to the level of where people are feeling the quote unquote pain and what they ask or where they want to take things. But I think that's the great thing about speaking to practitioners who are in the trenches, as it were, and doing the creating, and not just creating, but also managing businesses and also being able to employ others and bringing others under the employ. So I think it's great, and teach others as well. So that's great. So thank you guys very, very much for joining us. And thanks to our audience as well. We saw your questions. Hopefully we were able to pull in a lot of them. We tried to pull in as much as we could. Thank you, Karen. I see your comment there regarding growing in these conversations. That's the aim. And we learn about each other as a region, as a people. And through that integration, we move ourselves forward when we look at post-COVID world. So guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Well, that's a great conversation there. And before we get to do a bit of a synopsis to everyone who's joined us, these are the kind of conversations we have every week. Whether you're watching on YouTube, if you are there, hit subscribe and ring the bell for when we give another announcement. And if you're on Facebook, please do like our page, join our page. It's somewhere either at the bottom or at the side. I don't know where it is, but it's somewhere there. Join our page as well and jump into our conversations that we have every Sunday here in the living room. But guys, that was a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoy that as usual. You know, I find myself saying this every week, just like what Karen was just saying there. You know, you're learning and growing every week, and you know, we just got to recognize the contribution, the value, and the overall effort. This is a heavy sector, you know, requiring a lot of effort, a lot of brain. You know, creativity is something that is really, really tiring. But you've got to admire those people who are working tirelessly to ensure that the Caribbean retains its place in the global world. We are creatives, man. Nobody can do it like us, and that's the truth.
Yeah, it's really good to see that there are people thinking hard about it, and I really want to see big things. And I mean, I came up with that framework there of distinctly collaboration.
That was on the spot, Jakes.
No, yeah.
Sorry, Phil.
And he had that right. He tried to put that in. Jeez, buddy, man, it's that. I was trying to show me up.
Every week, the man has just exposed me like cheese.
Competitiveness. But I think what helped was when Curtis talked about he showed how it worked in Jamaica, because they went from having that distinctive sound, and then we know Bob Marley's story of his music was through there was loads of collaboration with the UK producers as well.
Yes.
But then it just became a very competitive sound in its own that holds its own against any genre of music up there. So I just really hope to see that sort of rise in other sectors and other forms of expression as well across the Caribbean.
No, it's brilliant, and you can easily argue that brand Jamaica is one of our strongest things ever created. You know, that is a creative entity out of the Caribbean that has gone around the world many times. So, and it does have the model there.
There's a lot that we as a region can learn from it. You know, again, we tend to try to compete with each other, unfortunately, when it comes to certain things. But I don't think there's a need for us to compete with Jamaica or compete with Trinidad. Some of that will happen naturally. But you can collaborate and say, what did you guys do? That's why I asked Curtis the question. What did you guys do in Trinidad to foster the level of creativity that you just see pouring out of Trinidad year after year, month after month? You know, what did you do? Because it's not about Barbados competing with Trinidad. It's like we can learn something from Trinidad where that's concerned. You know, and I'm hoping that at the university, the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts really goes a long way towards that as well.
Yeah, I really think the university has a massive role now to play to help to shape this wealth of opportunity that exists across all of our communities. I do think the establishment of the faculty is essential, and how they harness the wealth of what is happening across the landscape is going to be crucial.
Yeah. At the end of the professor's speech, he said 2 words: "Come home." Repeat it again. Come home. And to be honest, I had to stop myself from packing my bags because it was such a speech.
You ready?
Yeah.
Is interesting, you know, and I know we can look. 2020 is going to be a year obviously known for predominantly one thing, right? But I think the legacy of 2020 will be known for a lot more.
Yes.
You know, and it's good because even when you watch the speech, and I watched it live last night and then watched it back, the amount of people who watched it would have never been in the room if that were happening live in real time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think one of the legacies of COVID is even through the disconnection, we had more connection. And I think coming out of it, I'm hoping for the region that our understanding about how much we need to do together to go further and beyond is how important that is. And I really hope that's going to be one of the legacies that come out of it. Absolutely. But one thing I wanted to touch on as well, because we looked at it a lot of times here, we were talking, a lot of times people were saying, you know, Michelle touched on it, her students saying they want to go to Hollywood or they want to look to North America or to the UK or what have you. And it's not just in the creative arts, you know, that do it. One of the things that happened like this week just gone as well was the central bank series, and I think it was looking at reviving Caribbean tourism.
Yes.
And one of the interesting points, and I remember writing it down as I listened to that. And if anyone has a chance, you can go listen to that as well. It was, who led it? It was Julian Rogers
on UWI
and,
TV.
On UWI TV, and it's a great watch. But one of the things that happened there is that someone was speaking about the amount of people in the Caribbean. I think it's around 22 million people. Yeah. But then the conversation when speaking about tourism completely shifted to getting European tourists and American tourists back. Yeah. And I'm going like, hang on. You've got 22 million people that even in that discussion, we just said how great we managed COVID-19.
But
so
however,
let's put in inverted commas. We got 22 million people that are COVID free. Let's put that in inverted commas because I know we had some cases.
Yeah.
So that's your natural tourism restart.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So why then do we straight away look? And that's why I asked the question as well. We talk about it and we know that we can look intra-regionally, but when people bubble to a level of, where they can actually enact stuff, they still use the same old thing and look beyond ourselves.
Because it is in our DNA to always feel as though we have to look extra regionally for the success or for what is good. And if there's one thing that I'm really hoping that will change post-COVID is that we have some serious reflections about who we are. And I think that was one of the things the professor said in the speech as well. She asked that question, who are we? We seriously have to resolve that question amongst ourselves and recognize the value that we need to place on the 22 million people who live across the region and the contribution that they can make towards helping the Caribbean to become an even greater place to live and do business and raise your family.
Yeah.
$1 spent from someone outside the region isn't more than $1 spent from someone within. But for some reason, we've got in our head that it is. Yeah, I don't get it.
Listen, before you close, I want to say two things before we leave.
Go ahead.
I want to give a special thanks to our co-producer who is always here, busy working behind the scenes on the comments and is giving me a big wave notice. Don't say anything, do anything. Special thanks to Sonia Corbin who works behind the scenes on this show every week and gives us a really good insight into the comments that are coming through. So a great job. Thank you very much.
Will you do
very well done, Sonia. Clearly, this man ain't doggo. Clearly.
I can sleep good tonight.
Yeah, you're good.
Redemption song.
Yes, and listen, as we sing in Jamaica, listen, the 6th of August is a special date for our friends and brothers in Jamaica. So we just want to say happy independence for the 58th year of independence to Jamaica. Indeed. So we hope you guys have a wonderful time in the week ahead.
Indeed. And and everyone, thank you so much for staying with us. Most of you stayed with us for the entire 2 hours and 16 minutes. And thank you for that. We don't take it for granted that you tune in every weekend for these conversations, you contribute, you share. Thank you so much. And as we say, Be Global is going to grow, and the Caribbean is going to come together. And that's one of the reasons why we started it, to get these conversations going, to get us learning about ourselves by ourselves. So we thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you have a great rest of your Sunday and enjoy the week ahead. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep.
Redemption song, man.
I want to write.
Man, clearly do something, boy.